Okay. They don't need to see us in the recording.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully, I've got a picture of me on top of Mount Sinai for you to look at.
Nope, not yet. You're not sharing screen.
Not shared?
Nope,
Thank you for letting me know because I thought I was sharing.
nope,
And how
not yet.
do I get on there? All right, try again. Says I'm zooming. Uh-oh, I've lost you. Uh-oh, I've lost you.
We still see you.
Well, I don't see you. So where did you go? There you are. Okay, I found you back. All right, let's try sharing again. And this time we want
Now
to,
we have you and Rena.
well, I want to have a picture over here that it says stop share. I want to go to share and then try that one.
Okay, now we have you and some mountains behind you.
Good. Well, let me get the slideshow to work. And that should come on now.
Okay.
And I'll invite Deb Luce to introduce this character.
Okay, so this is, as you all know, our illustrious, courageous, and adventurous leader, Paul DeBarthe, who has recently been traveling to Jordan and to Mount Sinai. I'm sorry I missed the presentation last week, but I'm here to get the second half this week. And so we look forward to hearing Paul's perspective of those things that he saw and those things that he experienced. So welcome tonight, Paul. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Let us pray together. Great God of history and its mystery beyond time, we bow in respect, seeing a bit of your creations, beautiful, integrated, enduring, and sublime. This evening we look at phenomenal developments for humankind at Petra and Mount Sinai. And we recognize in our limited dimensions, there is no way in which we can expect to see you eye to eye. Yet you invite, you encourage, you whisper, you nudge us with angels wearing human skin, and you plant ideas of peace throughout the mystery of history. You find it deep within. This evening, as we review an excursion most meaningful to our speaker, Paul, we ask for your spirit to attend, allowing its presence to be felt by all. For your communication with Moses and your continued efforts to communicate with us gives us reason to want to reason together in respect, in love, with glimpses of truth to discuss. So as we share together, help us to be fully aware that you continue to communicate because you deeply care. And we care enough to share together, to listen, look, respond to your touch and comply, for you are in the whose we are, friends, neighbors, family, members, seeing a bit of you in them as we look at them eye to eye. Bless us with the ability to breathe love in every breath. In the name of the Prince of Peace, we pray. Amen. All right, I want to go to the next slide share. Oop, I've got to get rid of that one first, haven't I?
Okay, so you've stopped sharing now.
Okay, I want to go to sharing the ones on, I've got myself in the slideshow. Click to get out of there. How do I get that one moved? There it goes. All right. All right, it should be Petra. Whoop,
Okay.
I missed it. Slide share. There, that one should be Petra. Start the slideshow.
We aren't seeing it, Paul. You're not sharing.
Not yet?
Nope.
Well, it says here we are.
Okay, now you are. Now we've got like, see a cart way back in the back surrounded by stone walls.
All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased to have a chance to share with you again this evening. And I'm opening with a slide of the entryway to Petra. Petra is a fascinating cut in stone city in southern Jordan with its origins dating back over 2,000 years, probably at least 3,000. The earliest inhabitants were the Nabateans, and we know comparatively little about them. But we do know that they cut these channels, and you can see, if you can see the channels that work their way down beside the walkway, there's one on either side. One side was to carry water for the animals, the other side carried water for the people. And down at the bottom of the hill, they had cisterns to collect the water and make it so that they would have sustainability in their community, which got to have a population of as many as 20,000 people by about 2,000 years ago. And so, as I share with you about Petra, I want you to understand that it was the last part of the excursion that we were on. I had been to Mount Sinai 2 days previously, but I'm going to be putting the Mount Sinai story after Petra because I want to conclude with the what I think is rather profound whispers and messages that I got from Mount Sinai. So anyway, and I'm pleased to hear that Eric was at Petra a month ago, and so he and if any of the rest of you have had experience with this place, certainly welcome to share that. I was impressed that the Jordanians have been putting quite a large number of windmills up on the east bank of the Rift Valley. And here you can see a cluster of them, just rather an astute uh, uh, approach because they're capturing a great deal of energy that way. And you see the wires going overhead. But Amman is getting to be a good-sized city, and clearly they need that. And so it's a major factor for them to be able to supply their own electricity. And it's also a major factor that they need clean water. And that's going to be another issue that I'll talk up with you in a moment. But the fact that they're able to get the electricity and that allows them to pump water, and so they're getting irrigation. One of the few places where the green fields in the wintertime were showing there. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a glimpse because so much of what we saw was barren desert. And well, all across Sinai, all across Jordan, all across Egypt, except for along the river valleys, and even oftentimes the wadis would be dry. It was a scorched, barren. I mean, from the Iowa perspective that I come from, it's hardly habitable. Much to, well, I searched for flowers in Tahiti. Flowers are always available. I could always take pictures of flowers if my wife was out of sight. But I will show you the one flower I found on this excursion, and just it'll come up here in a moment. But I wanted to show you the footprints of the camels across the desert here, because access to Petra for thousands of years was fundamentally by camel. And the camel caravans then would stop there because it became a major trading point for the Natufians. And then Alexander the Great had his troops coming in there about 320 BC. And then the Romans came in, and the Romans were able to overpower, well, profoundly influence the Natufians. And then they had an earthquake about a little after 300 AD. And by 700 AD, the city was pretty well abandoned. But it's a city that's been formed by the sculpting of water and wind. And here, by man. You can see again that's the water trough coming down along the side, but you can see how the wind and water have sculpted above it. And as you can see, I'm going to be kicking along quite a lot of slides in a hurry because I have far too many slides for the amount of time allotted. The narrow passage from up where the Wadi town is and where Petra fundamentally is located is a very narrow passage. And here you're seeing just how narrow passage it is. I'll show another picture of that in a moment, but let me give you an overview of the city. The visitor center, the hotels are up here in Wadi Musa. It's a mile then to walk the trail down to the fundamental site where people get excited, the palace, where the Corinthian columns are, and where the Grand Temple is, and the amphitheater where the plays are conducted. That's all in this central area. But it was my privilege to walk into that area, and I was hurting. I was hurting because 2 days before I had climbed Mount Sinai, and I'd ridden a camel up the mountain for 3 miles, and then in the dark down the mountain for 3 miles. And by the time I'd finished 6 miles on a camel with a wooden saddle with a blanket on it, my rear end was bleeding. And so 2 days later, I was not walking quite as liberally as I normally would have. And Muhammad, the Bedouin guide who picked me up down in here, decided that I should have a mule to ride. And so you'll see me catching up with a mule here after a little while. But I do want to call to your attention that um, the trails come all the way up here up to Abdir, and then you've got a spot up here where it's called the top of the world. And because I was able to get on a mule, that I got to explore a great deal. I still didn't get to see all of it by any means, but fascinating, just a fascinating sight. And when you see the tremendous amount of work that wind and water have done, and then the huge amount of work that the people have done, simply supplying themselves with water was huge. I mean, you look at the amount of sandstone they had to remove in order just to make those water channels, and you keep those water channels at the right level so you can work it down all the way a mile down that narrow pathway. Wow, it's amazing work. And then they dug their homes and temples and burial sites into those sandstone walls as well. And so it's a fascinating place to study. There's a lot of fun symbolism. The temperature up above here has an eagle. Let's see, yeah, that's the one I think with an eagle on it. Um, so the symbols that are carved from the Natufians and then the Greeks and then the Romans are one of the intriguing parts of it. And you'll see that the Greek architecture comes in. Here's the amphitheater, able to seat 4,000 people, and that's all just simply cut out of the mountainside of stone. I mean, the amount of work put into cutting out an amphitheater like that, and then up here I goofed. I lost it. I messed. Well, I've been working with the slides so much I've got myself messed up here. Anyway, you see now some more finished pieces than others, but by and large, what you'll see is pretty rugged stuff, and a lot of it is pretty badly eroded. A lot of homes and tombs on both sides of the valley, and it's fascinating because occasionally you see one that's dark, you can have a chance to go in. And so I'll show you inside one in a little bit. But you can see you're talking about here about climbing the cliffs in order to get to where you can cut out another chunk of stone and turn it into a home. And on the one side, you have the wealthy families. On the other side, you have poorer families. This is the temple Temple of Descharges. I think it was destroyed by the earthquake in about 313 AD. It's part of the community that was rediscovered in 1812 by a Swiss gentleman, and it had largely been covered over by sand, and so a great deal of sand has been removed in order to be able to expose the city as it was for probably 1,000 years as a trading center for the Middle East. And yeah, again, here you can see the rather exquisite architecture, uh, although there's a good deal of erosion. When the sandstorms come, they're pretty harsh. But again, just the sculpting by nature is fascinating by itself, and then the sculpting by the people digging all those holes, and many of these are tomb sites. And so the fact that there's a tremendous amount of archaeology yet to be done on the site. Recent archaeology, a quarter of a mile away from the site, has uncovered another portion which appears to be predating most of the rest of Petra. So it may be taking it back another 1,000 years. Fascinating to see the amount of work that's gone into producing this place. Looking there, how you got exterior entries, then interior entries, then entries beyond that. It's just amazing and fascinating to see the workmanship that's gone into it. You'll see my red Chiefs jacket periodically because when I got down into the center portion of Petra, I met Muhammad, who was a Bedouin, who had grown up at Petra. He explained that he had 40 years on the site. He, as a child, had herded goats on the mountains, and now he herds people. And he saw that I was hurting as I walked, and so he arranged for me to get a black mule to carry me around. But he had a good deal of information, and so it was fascinating to poke the button and hear him talk and try to understand what was going on, because it was just an amazing recital to hear something of the history of this remarkable site. And to recognize that they had camels there, but my experience with camels was not very favorable. If you'll notice, there's a pommel in front and one in back, and so to get on, you got to get your leg over one and to be able to straddle the thing. And then when the camel gets up, he gets up with his hind legs first, and that jams your pelvis against the front pommel. And then he gets up with his front legs and pokes you in the back with the back pommel. And then every step he takes, he'll move you back one way or the other. So that's why I explained that when I got to the bottom of Mount Sinai, my bottom was bleeding. But it was dark, and I knew that the camel was walking down a path that I'd come up on before, and that path had a drop off of probably 1,000 meters on one side. And so it was not a place where one could dare fall. And in the circumstances like that, and for me, it was striking because just a year ago, I took a 5-foot fall off the tractor and broke 3 vertebrae. So to be riding a camel at night with no steering wheel to grab, no steps to climb up, no stirrups, no bars to grab a hold of, in the dark, recognizing that it was a precarious position to be in, you hang on for dear life. And there may be a message worthwhile in that. So, but let me assure you that hanging on for dear life is probably something the people of Petra did quite well too. Because look at the ladder that they made in the steps to get up to the next level. I mean, these guys had to be scampering around like a bunch of monkeys in order to be able to dig out the holes they did. And notice there's a plant growing inside that doorway. Just fascinating to see the remnants of a city that was dug out of stone. And the background is, well, we're part of the Rift Valley here. The Rift Valley is where Leakey found the Australopithecines and Homo habilis when Louis Leakey was looking in Africa. So that Rift Valley goes from Lake Victoria in Africa all the way up to the Dead Sea in Jordan. And that Rift Valley is fundamentally a valley that's been put together with a limestone base. But when you have continents that rub together, the limestone folds up and creates sort of a steeple type of effect. Mother Earth, in her generosity, fills that with her magma and it comes up and turns into granite, or in this case, sandstone. And so to be able to appreciate the millions of years of preparation for Mother Earth and Father God to be putting this Rift Valley together, a place where Mount Sinai could be squeezed up out of the bowels of Mother Earth, and then for that to be the place for God and man to meet. Wow, what an awesome experience. All right, here I am back to that awesome 4,000 seat amphitheater. And I think I have another picture of that coming, but of course I've been working with them so much I've scrambled in two different sets, and so I've scrambled them here. Anyway, let me kick them on. You'll see that that guy in the red jacket is still predominantly being featured here because Mohammed is taking his picture generously. But the camera is running out of AA batteries, and so I'm carrying the camera rather frustrated. This is the obelisk tomb, and you can see the obelisks up above there. But again, look at the fascinating architecture that's been incorporated into this remarkable site. And then again, here we have some faces that are smooth and well enough recessed to be protected, and then many that are just basically holes in the wall where people had their tombs or their homes. But what a remarkable community. And all along the base of it are people selling their wares. And so that's been the case forever. And so, uh, yeah, a little bit tough to get out of there without buying things. And to the left here, you see the monastery. That monastery was a little bit later construction, but again, with the earthquake, it took serious damage. And again, the archaeologists are working to try to reassemble as much as they can. And the monastery has the columns, and you notice those columns are the Greek type of columns with the Corinthian tablature above, and that it just fascinates me to see that no more time than what the Greeks had there, they nonetheless were able to leave a profound influence, and probably some of that was picked up by the Romans and continued. So I think we can give the Greeks their share of the credit, but the Romans as well. And yeah, this is the most famous place. The treasury is the site where most people, when a person spends $300 to get a golf cart ride from the hotel down, they'll take them down to see the treasury and back again, and maybe not much more. And so the prices tend to be rather extravagant there. So be careful as you deal with people. The Bedouins generally like to negotiate. The modern hotel people are not so much. Here's one of those caves and cutouts where I got to walk in. You see there's a carpet there behind me. And in getting inside, if I can get that to go inside, the interior was covered with carpets, but the ceiling was painted. But a very substantial room cut out of the stone inside here. And then, of course, the back room also full of things for people to buy because the Bedouin are very good about trying to see to it that they make money at every hand. And here you get to meet the black mule that gave me a ride for probably, it would have been at least 3 hours. So probably 6 miles through Petra and around. And so I got to be quite familiar with him. And notice that mule has has a place to hook my feet. So I actually didn't have that problem that I had with the camels with the mule. The stirrups made it so I had a better chance to keep my balance, which was a good thing because I'll get to a little bit later. The mule wasn't necessarily inclined to stay on the path. Again, here you see this amphitheater, and it has facilities on both sides for the actors to come in and go out. And I didn't get to go check out the acoustics, but Mohammed assured me the acoustics here are phenomenal. There we are again. And again, it's on the other side. And again, the columnar structures, that speaks then of the Roman period probably. And This is oh, it's another tomb. Forgot its name. Um, but anyway, the tombs all across the site, and I'm not quite sure how the tombs and temples get distinguished. But here's the Great Temple. Lots of columns, pretty good size construction, and this one is not. This one is built independently out of the materials available, rather than cutting it into the walls as most of the rest of the city is done. But yeah, fundamentally, it is a city cut out of stone, and so that's why it's particularly known. And so there you get to see a bit of context. Context. It's just a phenomenal site to visit. And then I had the privilege of climbing up to the top of the world. And the top of the world, as they call it, puts you in a position where you can look across the Jordan River Valley all the way across to, well, I'm not sure you can see all the way across because it's so cloudy, but the Muhammad indicated that was Palestine on the other side. Now here you get to see the black mule with me astride, and it appears that we're on a downhill slope here, and I don't think that that ever happened. But this is a wider path than what more that I remember. But the wall beside it is instructive because I remember first time that as we were going up one of these paths, the slope was pretty remarkable. Quite a lot of sandstone, and the sandstone's a bit slippery. And the question was, how reliable are the mule's feet on slippery sandstone? Well, to my astonishment, the mule was given his own head. The Muhammad just followed along, and the mule stepped up on the wall. And here I was looking down into a ravine thousands of feet below and hanging on for dear life. Literally, when you look down and see that maybe 1,000 meters below, and that mule is calmly walking along on this 1 foot wide path, choosing that in preference to the path beside him, you don't dare overbalance that mule. You got to stay balanced. But fortunately, I had the stirrups, and so I stayed balanced. And after he walked for a while, he hopped back down on the pathway, and then he hopped back up on the wall as he chose. And several times he walked on the wall and made me apprehensive. The fact is, it was a bit scary. But at the same time, to trust the mule and recognize that if we stayed in balance together, we'd be okay. Because he knew the route, and I had to trust that he knew the route well enough to know when it was safe to get up on the wall and when it was safe to better to get out on the ground. So anyway, that was rather a challenging experience for me. And here's one of those examples where you can see the water and the rain and the wind having done a beautiful job of sculpting. Then up above, there's also a hole where the people have done some sculpting as well. And finally, I did get to the top, which is called the top of the world. And from there, I thought we'd be turning to go back through Petra. But to the contrary, Muhammad decided that we should look across the valley and then swing around behind Petra. And so we went on to the north, and I had run out of batteries, and so my pictures are limited at this stage. But as we went to the north, he made a phone call, and a gentleman with a pickup came, and he had a 12-year-old boy that climbed on the mule and rode it back where it belonged. And so I got the pickup and presumed that they would be taking me back to the hotel. That was not an accurate presumption. We got to the Bedouin village, and at the Bedouin village, the truck stopped, and they said, "Get out and go to that truck on the other lane." I had had some earlier interaction with the Bedouins and knew about their history as people who they had a very high moral code about not molesting women, but they also made a living by capturing men and Hijacking was the term that the Bedouin used for me. Hijacking the caravans to take wealth from the caravans was a matter of life and death for them for thousands of years. And for me to be asked to get into a neighboring pickup meant that I was now surrounded by three Bedouin gentlemen, and they proceeded to take me to this Bedouin house. So I took off my shoes to walk across those carpets to be respectful, and they took me out to the room behind, which is this room with a table and chairs. And there I sat down, and they sat down, and they asked for money. And so, of course, I gave it to them. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of choice, I think. And after some negotiations, they gave me a cup of tea. I drank the tea, but they insisted that they ought to be paid for the mule, for the tea, for the pictures that Mohammed had taken, the good tour that Mohammed had given me. And the fact was, I had had an awesome experience. And so whether I was kidnapped or just simply being hustled a bit for a little bit more money, I think possibly if you look at the Bedouin heritage, I was being hustled a bit. But nonetheless, it was an awesome day to finally have them agree to take me back to within a block or so of the hotel where I was staying. I found my way to it, and I was relieved then to get back with the group that I had come with, and having isolated myself for about 4 hours, it felt good to be back among familiar people. As a matter of fact, I acknowledge it felt good to get back to the United States of America among the familiar again. And let me move on. The terrain is tough between Petra and the lands to the north. Some of our group getting their dinner, and when you get to the Dead Sea, then there are people exploiting the 29 minerals that come out of there. And interesting that people go there to bathe in the mud and give their skin the textures that the minerals offer. But you're at 422 meters below sea level at the point where this post is. And you can see that the water has receded even more. And the fact that the water of the Dead Sea has been receding at a meter per year for the last 50 years or so means looking out on the east bank, you see it's a big mud bank up here, up 50 meters high. And if I show you on the other side, you'll see it again. And it's just phenomenal because the Jordan River enters over here, and the Jordan River used to be 22 meters wide, and now it's 6. And so the Dead Sea is not getting the water it used to get. The water's being used for irrigation upstream. And so there's another 88 meters of Dead Sea there, but present rate, it's only another 88 years for the Dead Sea to exist. And we got to see the sunset over the Dead Sea, and that was neat. It was also rather neat and remarkable that Jeannie got to almost fall in. Well, she wanted to get a little bottle of water, and so here she got this gentleman to help her get the bottle of water, and somehow that's gotten lost. But she was able to get a bottle of mud, and so we did get home with a bottle of mud. If you look closely, all the way across the Dead Sea, there's a village on the Israeli bank over there, and another village here. So it's amazing to see. And in spite of the fact that the Dead Sea is receding so much, people are moving into those banks and then using those as the sauna, the healthcare facilities, and they're profiting off of the large number of tourists that come to take advantage of the benefits the Dead Sea can offer. But at 140 degrees in the summertime, I think it's only advisable to go in the winter, as we did. Oh, and then we got on the airplane at Amman, and here's the Jordan River Valley as we flew over it. So I think that will conclude the pictures on Petra. And let me pause for questions or comments, and then I'll go to Sinai. Any questions or comments? Good. I see Sterling got in. All right, we want the slide share. Okay, we want to show that. All right, I don't hear any questions or comments. So let me get a sip of water and we'll move to the Sinai Peninsula. It is part of Egypt, and it is 2 days earlier than what I've just been talking about. But let me flip through a bunch of slides to give you a little bit of acquaintance with what that desert is like. Sinai Peninsula is a fully desertified zone with some interesting eruptions showing in the middle of that desert. Just amazing to see all the human activity that's been added to the wind and water erosion that have formed that site.
Paul, did you want your pictures to be full screen?
They're not?
No, not right now.
No. Well, I think that one's just half screen because it's the engine.
But we're seeing multiple slides at the bottom, and then,
Oh, you are?
yeah, it's like showing us one slide and then the next. It's the presenter mode, he said, or Rick says.
All right. So how do I get to the mode I want it to be in? I'll be in the show. Go back and stop share. Try that again because probably I did something wrong in sequence. Did I get it better this time?
You're not sharing screen right now.
Oh, did it worse?
There it is. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for catching that. Let's kick it on.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, it is a lot of sand in this desert and a lot of rocks, a lot more human activity than I anticipated. And one of the interesting stories is the story of Lawrence of Arabia, who came into this area and established this narrow gauge railroad. And the Lawrence of Arabia movie was made here. And so you get to pick up on that story. And it's rather fascinating because Lawrence of Arabia was a British army officer who developed a real fondness for the Bedouin and helped them get the railroad established from this desolate area all the way to Mecca, so that they, instead of having to take a month to make the trek on camels, could make the trek in 10 hours on the train. And of course, he was very much interested in the Bedouins being able to have, or the Arabs being able to have independence from the Ottomans and from the British and from the French. Here's the interior of that train car. Annika, the guide here, pretty proud of getting to show us Lawrence of Arabia's facilities. But here's the narrow gauge railroad track, and they have a train car there for the king. The royal family of Jordan is held in very high esteem. And here's the car that they used to scrape the sand away from the rails so they could keep the train going. And of course, our people had to go explore it, and I was fascinated. My dad would have enjoyed this just because the the gearing, the the ingenuity to put together that kind of a machine, fascinating. But anyway, the Bedouins have been using camels for thousands of years, and so Lawrence of Arabia helped them to get much faster camel. The sunrise here is over an intrusion which I wish I had a better picture, but this stone hangs out probably 20 feet over the lighter colored stone. And so it's a fascinating landmark there. You see a little bit better. But this is a resort where we were able to spend the night in a tent, and very nice tents at that. Matter of fact, the tents were so intriguingly nice. They only last about 10 years, but nonetheless, in terms of resort with sandstorms and so forth, they're reasonably well built and rather cozy. And then they have a big tent for the meals and gatherings, and that was where we spent one night. And food there, they actually had food coming out of an underground oven, and that was a fascinating part of our overall experience. But there's Jeannie sharing her meal with her cat. Not totally happy to be doing so, but we were intrigued to find cats and puppies throughout the tour, and they got quite a lot of our attention. A lot of sand and a lot of rocks. And sometimes you get the two combined together. We get to the area where people are still celebrating Lawrence of Arabia, and it's a very narrow gorge where he camped out quite a bit of time. And then when the movie was made, you have, what's his name? Lawrence O'Toole was the one who played the role. Interesting contrast. I understand that he was 6 feet 4 inches tall, whereas Lawrence of Arabia was about 5'5". And so there got to be some interesting discrepancies in the movie performance compared to the historical performance. And here you have the image of Lawrence of Arabia carved in a boulder at the mouth of that wash. And we got invited in by the Bedouins, and so there's a chance to get acquainted with the Bedouin hospitality. They put the fire on and made tea and offered quite an assortment of options for us. I was intrigued by this blade that's a handmade pig sticker, well, in my terms, but fascinating the sharpness of it and the workmanship thereon. And I got a good lesson because seeing these two people come walking across the desert on their camels, if you look, you'll see the lady and the gentleman both have both of their feet on the same side of the camel. They're riding side saddle. And of course, I didn't know to do that. I split myself and got rubbed on my bottom to where it hurt. But the camel that the lady is riding went down on its knees. She sat there calmly. When he went down on his backside, she slipped her left leg over the pommel and stood up on the sand, just as though it was a comfortable, easy thing to do. She'd done it all her life. And so learning how to ride a camel is not something I'm interested in investing in, but I got to see that for people that can do it, simple and easy and most accommodating, but I still prefer the four-legged with a better saddle and with stirrups. Petroglyphs on the walls, petroglyphs showing the direction to go to Petra. And I was intrigued. These petroglyphs are dated presumably about 2,500 years old. So that puts them back in the days of the Natufians, who were the early founders of Petra. And there's still camels being ridden and driven across the sand. They're still a remarkably resilient beast of burden, able to walk across the desert for a week without water. And look at what the wind and water has done to that stone, that sandstone. I was just simply intrigued by it to the point that I took a closer picture as well. Look a bit like Jimmy Carter. All right. And then here's more of the work of the sand and of the wind and water, marking the remarkable features of that terrain. And there is the bush of flowers that I found. They had rained 2 days before we were there. And so the desert was blooming, and here are the blooms that I got to find. But by and large, it looked like this. And you'll notice that the tracks show that the highway is anywhere you drive, anywhere you want to drive. And for the camels, you park them out in the middle of the desert, and when they go down, they put their joints down on the sand. Their joints are calloused. First camel I got on was at the pyramids, and that one had his head down on the sand, and his tongue was out of his mouth on the sand. So I thought he was dead. But that was the camel I got to ride because the owner came and kicked him up and said, "Hey, get up, you lazy brute." And so I got on, and we got to go see the pyramids. But getting across all that sand can get you to St. Catherine. St. Catherine Monastery is at the base of of Mount Sinai, and so it has the distinction of having been there since 600 A.D. And so interesting to me to appreciate that here is a Greek Orthodox church occupying a site that is sacred to the Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians. The Greek Orthodox have some beautiful hand-scripted Bibles there that we don't have a lot of pictures of. But here's a painting in the back that I thought was sort of neat. And then they had a nice restaurant that served us very well. But here is a 600-year-old door. And fascinating that, no, yeah, it's a 600-year-old door. But this is also the site where they claim to have the burning bush and the well where Moses met Zipporah, his wife. This is the well, and the bush is just above it. To be able to appreciate that the monastery has been the steward of that bush for over 1,000 years. The bush apparently is sterile, so when they tried to take cuttings from it to get other burning bushes to grow, that has not worked. But it has persisted and lived for, well, the monastery says for 1,400 years. So that's rather fascinating, just rather remarkable, and whether it is the legitimate original burning bush or not. For me, the reflection upon Scripture was profound. For as a boy, I remember reading about Moses stepping aside, going in to inquire about this bush that was on fire but was not being consumed. And he heard the voice that said, "Moses, take off your shoes, for the ground thou standest upon is holy ground." Wow. To hear the voice of God, be told you're standing on holy ground, wow, you take off your shoes and you listen. The same facility monastery has these 200-year-old olive trees, and I found them intriguing. One of them had a limb freshly cut out, so you see the dendrochronology of it. Not enough to make up for 200 years, but still quite an aged piece of wood. And then it got to be my privilege to take the hike up Mount Sinai. It's not recommended for people that are over 65, or not recommended for people that are not in pretty good health. It's considered to be a 2.5 hour hike. It's basically a 4 mile hike. You can get a camel to ride for the first 3 miles, but you end up having to take the last mile on foot. And so that's what I did. And the ride up the trail on the camel's back was, well, it was interesting that we had some people in our group that made it halfway and then turned around and went back. But I was anxious to claim Mount Sinai. And so I got on this camel, and he and I made friends. And so we took the hike together. And we followed the other people up this rather remarkable trail, pretty well beaten trail. And you see my camel's head there, and here's the camel's owner leading the camel, and up ahead, other people getting a similar treatment. They literally have hundreds of people wanting to make this trek. But it's a little bit precipitous, and the camels can only go up about the first 3 miles. And then the fourth mile, you have to go by yourself because the trail gets too narrow and too precipitous. But I found it fascinating to make that trek. So you have several pictures of people going up. And then again, here you have walls like what I found later at Petra. But camels don't walk on the walls; they walk on the trails. So that was, but nonetheless, let me highlight if I can go back on that one. Again, it's quite a precipitous drop, and if you go off the wall, if the camel were to stray off the wall and fall, then it could be 1,000 meters to the bottom. But I persisted climbing, and this old man at 79 years old had to stop at least 20 times to breathe in order to get up there. And you see, I've got my camera on a monopod, which I use as a walking stick as well, and that helped. And I was gratified to have it because I ended up losing the walking stick afterwards, but it at least served the crucial purpose to get me way up on Mount Sinai. And it's not the highest peak. There's another St. Elizabeth Peak, which is a couple hundred feet higher adjacent, but nonetheless, it is quite a nice view from the top across that gathering of granite that Mother Earth has squeezed up between the sides of that Rift Valley. What a fascinating preparation. And then well, you can see the trail there, and the trail at that point still had pretty good access. It's not steps, but you're climbing up, and sometimes you're climbing up a couple of feet per step. Here you can see better what the trail is like. And so, yeah, it was a strenuous climb, but I did get to the top, and I was very pleased with myself to get to the top and have a chance to look across, all the way across over to what probably is either Palestine or Israel on the far side. And three of my young companions, Dylan here, and Eli here, and a young lady named Grace, she came running up the last steps just because she could. I mean, she did that maybe just to embarrass me. But these young people in their 30s were agile and able to get up to the top and be in good shape. I got to the top and sat there and got my picture taken, and then we began to realize that sign indicated that the sunshine indicated that it was going down, and I needed to be going down as well. But to take some time on Mount Sinai to just simply attempt to feel the phenomenal experience of God reaching out to man, to Moses. The Jews say it was Yahweh, and that means the breath of life. The Muslims say it was Allah. And notice when you say Allah, you're breathing out the breath of life. The Christians say it was the great I Am who gives sanction and presence in all of existence. And I like that. That's a powerful expression of the divine that permeates everything, even the galaxies beyond the ones that we live in. Wow, what an awesome God we worship. But for that God to come and speak to man here and to say, the ground that your feet are on is holy ground, to me was a profound message. Just a short 3 years ago, my sweetheart Rena passed to the next dimension. And when she did, she told me to go write another chapter in the book of my life. She came back 2 months after she passed to whisper in my ear on the day that we were having a celebration of her life. And so the kids had a feast put together at the basement of the stone church, and they were preparing to feed 200 people that evening at the end of the Community of Christ World Conference. Rena would have done that, but the kids did it for her to celebrate her life. And she woke me up that morning to whisper in my ear to say, tell them, don't forget to love each other. Don't forget to love each other. And that message, which she brought back to me, this angel with human skin that married me and lived with me for 53 years, came back to give me that parting message. And of course, I carry that with me wherever I go. But to find myself on Mount Sinai, where God had spoken to Moses to say, I am, where he urged, where Yahweh and Allah urged people to appreciate with every breath they take that is a gift from the divine. What an awesome gift we have. And so let me summarize the holy ground where Mother Earth has prepared for her children to meet their Father, Mount Sinai. For millions of years, Mother Earth has laid down layers of limestone to be crunched by the continents in the extended valley called the Rift. There, in the chasm created, her magma squeezes out and up into the mountains of granite, where hominids and humans seek to become gods, building monuments to Ozymandias, bequeathing history as their gift. And Ozymandias is that awesome poem that Percy Shelley wrote about Ramses' legs in the desert. The great monuments we make tend to fall apart. There, probably during the reign of Ramses II, who lived from 1301 BC to 1213 BC, Moses saw a burning bush not being consumed and was instructed to take off your shoes, for the ground thou standest upon is holy ground. Unquote. Moses did take off his shoes and bowed in reverence before the bush, the voice, the sound, and heard what the Jews say was the breath of Yahweh. Muslims say it was Allah. Also the breath that gives life. Christians say it was I am, the sanction for all existence. And they agree that here, Mother Earth prepared a place for her children to meet their Father, the eternal God, creator of time and dimensions beyond time's omnipotence. This great God, speaking where Mother Earth had prepared a place for God-man communion, told Moses to go lead the people from slavery into freedom. Prepare them for an ultimate reunion in which the lion will lie down with the lamb and a little child shall lead them. The child who led would be born in an impoverished condition in Bethlehem. He would be known as a carpenter's son who could fashion a yoke sincerely without crease, and would die, yet be resurrected as the Prince of Peace. His followers, his agents in the world yet to come, would see big egos building monuments to themselves, attempting to join the cadre of billionaires. Yet ultimately the people of peace, followers of the Prince of Peace, would become the Father and Mother of Earth's meek, inheriting heirs. Moses went back to Mount Sinai, returned with plates written on by the finger of God to find his people worshiping a golden calf. Yahweh, Allah, I am, asked for love, no other gods to gain priority, and did not laugh. Those plates were smashed, ultimately to be replaced by a list of 10 commands. Still to love God, honor your parents, but not to kill, lie, steal, covet, or make unjust demands. Precedent for smashing the holy, having it replaced, calls for repentance, preparing to come face to face, determined to do right, to love God, to honor thy father and thy mother, to learn the language of love, breathe it, respecting, reconciling with the marginalized other. I have witnessed the holy in Polynesia, Tapu Tapu Atea and Tainu'u. I have witnessed and shed my shoes in Mexico, Teotihuacan, Chichen Itza, Dain Su. It has been my privilege to stand upon holy ground in Canada and the USA, so I am convinced that wherever we stand, the ground is holy. I am, has had, is having his say. We are stewards of that ground, the hills, the lakes, the beautiful streams, as we are stewards of our past, its children, inheritors of its dreams. So as we celebrate the sacred, the holy, wherever we are found, let us express our gratitude to Mother Earth and Father God for creating and meeting us on holy ground. We are called upon to learn to breathe a bit of love into every breath. We are called upon to believe the love dimension does conquer death. We are called upon to embrace the golden rule, showing respect, reasoning in love with each other, and to embrace our neighbor as a friend, to be considerate, compassionate, as though each one is our family, our sister, our brother. And as we look to the future, a few or 1,000 generations, foreseeing in the sands of time a peaceful shift. As people of peace, we live and die in confidence of resurrection from death's valley, reunited with our mother and father on holy ground, the eternal gift. May the Lord bless you with love in every breath. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Wonderful presentation, beautiful sights and your pictorial presentation. It was just wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Paul or comments? You've left them speechless, Paul.
Paul,
Okay, Boyd's got a question and then Chris. Go ahead, Boyd.
They're lining up now. Okay. All right, good.
Well, how I wound up first is a mystery, but I don't usually happen. But hey, Paul, just out of curiosity, how confident are you that that is really Mount Sinai and also the place of the burning bush?
Well, you may have noted that my conclusion is that all the ground is holy. So it doesn't matter a whole lot where it was. But the fact that Jews and Christians and Muslims have for 1,400 years cited that, claimed that, and recognized that spot as Mount Sinai makes it sacred. And so I understand there's some people that are willing to dispute it, and clearly claiming the bush and the well to be the right ones for Moses from 3,000 years ago, maybe just a bit of a stretch. Yet, what does it matter? when we are being addressed by the divine, being told, take off your shoes. The ground you're standing on is holy ground, wherever you are. It is created by Mother Earth and Father God to be a place for us to meet together, commune together, to gain reunion together, for us to be face to face for eternity.
Okay, well, thank you, Paul.
Okay, Chris, it's your turn.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for that great presentation. I have brought a little show and tell for you.
Oh, wow. All right.
If
Oh,
you'll let me,
your question last week was so engaging that if it relates to that, then I'm excited already.
well, if I am permitted to share my screen,
Absolutely.
I will see if I can figure out how to do that. I may have to have Rick Bennett.
Should be just down at the bottom of your screen. Should be a
Right.
green square.
I've got so many screens open. I was having to search for it. All right. Can you see? Okay.
Yes.
You see what I've got here, Paul?
I can't quite read it yet. It looks like
it is a facsimile of Codex Sinaiticus.
Codex Sinaiticus. Okay.
Which dates to about 350, 400 and was discovered at St. Catherine's Monastery. It is one of the 3 most important manuscripts in text criticism.
Wow.
And here is what it looks like.
So that's hand
on the inside.
Yeah, that's hand printing of the kind that I was not allowed to take pictures of.
That's right. That's right.
But get everybody to look at that. That's just awesome. Looks like a typewriter, but that's done by monks.
It is lovely. It's lovely. And you'll notice there's no word divisions, no sentence divisions, no divisions really of any sort. And when there was a guy named Count von Tischendorf who was traveling through the Middle East looking for manuscripts, and he comes to St. Catherine's Monastery, and he noticed the monks throwing some old papers in the fire to keep warm. And it turned out to be Sinaiticus. So he convinced them to let him take the manuscript to his room overnight, and he feverishly copied it as much as he could. And eventually, through some political and religious ecclesial intrigue, this wound up at the British Museum. There was a deal struck between the Russian Orthodox Church, who gave the monastery the right to appoint their own abbot.
Oh.
And the manuscript went to Moscow and was sold at the beginning of the Second World War.
Wow.
It's quite and you can tell it took all I could to get the thing open and hold it for a moment. But I wanted to give you a gift for your great gifts to all of us. I really enjoyed this and have been looking forward to it, my friend.
Oh, thank you. That is so touching. The date again that he found was about 350?
Oh, it's probably 350, 400.
Yeah, well, I was telling you that they've been there since 600, but yeah, the manuscripts they had on display that they didn't want us to photograph,
right,
went all the way back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's an amazing thing, and when I was able to see it at the British Museum, it was on one side. Codex Sinai Alexandrinus was on the other side. It was in the room with the Magna Carta, William Shakespeare's signature, and original Beatles songs manuscripts.
Wow. What an awesome bit of history, huh?
That's exactly right.
Thank you, Chris. That's an awesome gift.
Yo, you're very
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
All right, thanks, Chris. Oh, okay, Terry, your turn. You need to unmute.
There we go.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Paul. Sorry I missed the first half. I was mentally elsewhere, but the second half that I saw was really nice and quite spiritual. I saw a presentation years ago on Petra that really, I don't know, shocked me isn't the right word, but really opened my eyes because all I'd ever seen about Petra is the carving in the sandstone rock there. But this presentation was about all the hills and the mountains around Petra that have dams and canals and all kinds of water systems to get the water into Petra and into that whole metropolis that was there at one time. So, did you see any of that when you were there?
Yeah, well, I started out with a picture of the channels that have been cut in the limestone a mile down into the site, and those went down to cisterns. Then they also, yes, I've read of the others. I didn't get to see any of the ponds or dams, but the cisterns, the big temple that had the columns that were built separately had a couple of big cisterns under it. And so it was fascinating how when the Tuvians started that design and pioneered it, made it work, the Greeks apparently refined it a bit. The Romans came and used it, and then it got largely destroyed, covered over, and now we can't help but just be full of admiration of what those old people pulled off.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. James Lucas, go ahead, please.
There we go. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Here we
Yes.
go. So I have just kind of, maybe these are touristy questions that could be, if I just look them up online, I could get the answers. But I'm curious, since you were there, is that still a functioning monastery? I mean, are there, Eastern Orthodox monks that live there and run the place?
Yes.
And there, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And does it have, since their perhaps most valuable manuscript has been spirited off by 19th century shenanigans to the center of the British Empire, do they still have a substantial library? You said that you weren't allowed to photograph their actual collection, but do they still have a number of manuscripts and such there?
I walked through two rooms that had Greek manuscripts, well, the manuscripts from early, I think the earliest was about 300 AD. There may have been something earlier than that, but again, it wasn't all in English, and I therefore was limited in my ability to decipher. But again, to see the awesome handiwork of the monks who had meticulously copied out the Bible. What a phenomenal amount of work they did. And see, that lasts up until the printing press. These guys were doing that kind of work. Every Bible then was a masterpiece. And so to see masterpiece after masterpiece lined up in the showcases in two rooms was really very impressive. And yeah, I of course didn't know to miss the one that Chris has shown us, but and they didn't say anything about that. But clearly they're still very proud of what they had. We did have a monk that gave us a tour, and it was in honor of the monk. I didn't even try to sneak a picture.
Okay. Do they, is there still active scholarship going on there? I mean, has their collection been photographed and, passed on to Bible researchers, or are there perhaps things in the library that nobody's seen yet, or is that it's not something that they would discuss with tourists?
Well, I didn't ask that question, so I don't really have a top of the world answer. But my sense of it is that the scholarship is still being sought there and encouraged there. I was particularly pleased and impressed to see the cooperation between the Jews, Muslims and the Christians on that site. Yes, there were people with guns at the roadways stopping to check to make sure that everybody that came in was nonviolent. But that's it's a pretty harsh area, and for something to be ignited at Mount Sinai would be catastrophic. And so I just a little bit surprised to see as many soldiers as there were on the roadways. But in the monastery itself, the monk that gave us a tour and the kindness of the people there was just a very nice symbol of the world to be in peace.
Okay, was there a charge to visit the monastery? I mean, does the monastery support itself financially now from visitors, or is it?
Yes, well, they had a very nice set of rooms that they rented out, and so our group had rental of the rooms, and then they also had the very nice cafeteria, and so those are money-making operations for the monastery.
Okay, which actually is consistent with the ancient tradition of hospitality that I think monasteries and places like that have carried on for a long time. Good, thank you. This is fascinating.
I just wanted to tell you how much I have enjoyed your both talks, but say that your climb to the top of Mount Sinai is quite an accomplishment, and you should be very proud because that was not easy, but it was really memorable. Thank you.
But thank you. You're right. It was not easy. Um, any of the exercises that we go through to try to get face to face with God, I think, is going to be a challenge. But it's worth it. I believe it's worth it. We need to get a closer walk with God, to even listen, get to where we can listen to his whispers. I was impressed that the two young men I pictured up on top, Eli and uh, uh, Dylan, had passed me on the way down, but they got down to about where the camels stopped, and they looked up and saw the beautiful night sky, and so they lay down on the ground and just worshiped. They just soaked in that beautiful night sky and took pictures and just admired it because it was so much clearer than what they've seen other parts of the world. I mean, in Cairo, you don't even see the night sky because of all the smog. But here at Mount Sinai, the stars were so apparently close. The feeling of the divine being so close just enraptured us and made us, well, because when I got off the camel and I was bleeding, these two gentlemen took my elbows and got me the last half mile down to the camp. And I appreciated it. They have promised to come dig with me this summer when we open the dig at Lamoni. But fun relationships develop, you see, friendships. And those friendships are so valuable in life. I think for you to recognize, for me to recognize that that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is full of friendships. And so we really need to be seeking them, developing them, appreciating them because they last. And love as an eternal quality endures. So allow it to reach out and go with every breath so you can expand your friendships, friends. I'm convinced that's one of the whispers that came to me from the experience on Mount Sinai. And as you can see from my poetic effort, that there's a lot more to be said.
I had to let my dog out. Sorry about that. Okay, Boyd, go ahead.
Oh, another question here. I missed about the first 15 minutes of us out of the house for a little bit. Um, I didn't catch. Did you happen to go to Jerusalem and to Mount of Olives and those areas?
No, no. The the experience was with a group of museologists. We went to Egypt and saw the pyramids, saw the great museums there, Karnak, Abu Simbel. Then we flew to Sinai, um, went to Amman, and then down to Petra, up to the Dead Sea, back to Amman, and from Amman to Washington, D.C. was a terrible, I mean, a beautiful 12-hour ride to get me home. But being stuffed like a sardine in a tin can was being fed food that caused me to get diarrhea, made it so it was not altogether a pleasant experience. And when we got landed, I, we landed at Dulles Airport, and it was a double wide bus that had to take everybody off. That's a 16-foot wide bus, not an 8-foot wide bus. And so it filled up, and of course I had the luggage. My cousin Jeannie was with me. We had 3 hours to make it from Dulles to Ronald Reagan Airport to catch our flight back to Kansas City. Here I was with diarrhea, having to get the luggage, having to get cut through customs, having to get Jeannie, who had a wheelchair, fortunately, and that helped us significantly. But oh, it was a trying time, memorable.
Sounds like
And unfortunately, I found a bathroom at the precise last moment.
between the camel and the bus and all, it sounds like it was a trip of survival sometimes, wasn't it? Huh?
Oh, well, yes, to hang on to that camel on the way down the mountain in the dark, to hang on to that mule as he walked on that 12-inch wall. Uh, those were close calls. Oh, and being escorted by three Bedouins to a nice Bedouin home, but then having the demand for money. But when you've been blessed with the kind of day I'd had, I was happy to pay for it too. So let's recognize they need to make their share of the income, and I have been remarkably blessed to have survived long enough to have had this addition to the rich experiences of my life. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I consider these Monday night presentations the rich experiences too. We were doing the archaeology at Nauvoo, and I felt like we were getting a taste of Zion, and with all of our people were working together, digging together, eating together, and we were careful not to talk too much about religion or politics. But other than that, we just had an awesome set of friendships with restorationists, Community of Christ, LDS, local people, regional people, all working together. And when COVID hit and we couldn't dig anymore, and so we set up this forum, it has been a continued taste of Zion for me, and I thank you all for your participation because you are part of that extended family that I have come to love and appreciate so much.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing anybody. I've got 25
Sandra,
after 9, so if you're willing to
Sandra
sing
has
us out if nobody's got any questions.
uh,
Oh, Sandra, hang on just a minute. Are you waving, Sandra, or you have a question?
I was just going to say good night.
Oh, okay. Thanks for being here again this week.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, let me sing us off then, and thank you all for joining in and your appreciative comments. But let me remind you that last week I got to share with you about the crocodiles and the potential that we need to sometimes tie the crocodile mouths together so that they don't bite us, and then maybe we can walk across their backs across the deep river. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Oh Lord, I want to go to the promised land, the promised land, a place and people of peace. Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. May you cross over on the backs of crocodiles and be people of peace. Good night.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Thanks, Paul. We're glad you made it out of Petra alive.
Well, yes, the whole experience to make it out alive, get back home, it's so much more comfortable here.
That's right. Night.
Good night.
Night. Can't find the recording thing.
Almost 9:30.
Paul,
Ah,
what are your plans for Nauvoo, archaeology in Nauvoo this summer?
Robert Cook, I think, has purchased that barn,
Yes, he has.
and